Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at transformations. Now, rather than put this all into one big, huge video, I decided to split it up. So part one is going to be looking at vertical and horizontal stretches and compressions, and reflections. All right, so let's take a look. Now, I'm going to be looking into this part one of the stretches, compressions, and reflections. Part two is going to be looking at vertical and horizontal translations. And then part three, we're going to look at them all together. All right, now for all three of these parts, I'm going to be using the quadratic formula. I'm still going to show you how it looks on others, but the same rules apply for all of them. So I'm going to show you how it works on the quadratic formula, and in part three, you're going to see examples using other type of parent functions. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first list the actual general for all of them. Okay, so let's say you have y is equal to, and I'm going to label these different colors, a, and you have your x, so I'm going to actually label that with the red, minus h, plus k. Okay, now when you're looking at the a, the h, and the k, the a by itself has two actual transformations associated with it. So, in order, what would I look at? Well, number one, if a is greater than 0, then I have a vertical stretch. So, for example, like if I have 3, 4, 5, so for example, I would have here a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. Okay? So again, if it's a whole number, then it's a stretch. All right? Now, keeping with the 1, you have a second part here, which is 1b. If a is less than 0, that means it's a negative number, you have a vertical reflection, a reflection on the x-axis. Okay? So for example, let's say I gave you y is equal to negative 3x squared. Well, in this case, you have two transformations. You have a vertical stretch by 3, and you have a reflection on the x-axis. Okay? That's what I mean that you can have two different reflections just from A. Okay? Next up, you have your, oh, I just realized I forgot the letter here, so let's put here K. So you have your K. Now, if K is greater than 0, here's where we differ. k is a number that's multiplying with the x directly, it's affecting the x directly, and because of that, it's not vertical anymore, it's a horizontal. Now, if k is greater than 0, that makes it a whole number. So in this case, this would mean I'd have a horizontal compression by a factor of 1 over k. So for example, let's say I have y is equal to 3x squared. Then I would have a horizontal compression by 1 over 3. Okay, so notice the difference here. When I have a whole number here, it's a stretch. When I have a whole number here, it's a compression by the flipped term. Okay? So you can imagine what the rest of them are going to look like. So 2b, once again, if k is less than 0, then it's a horizontal reflection on y-axis. Okay, so using the example above, if I had -3, then I'd still have a horizontal compression by 1/3, but I'd also have a horizontal reflection on the y-axis. And finally, I didn't talk up there about the last case, which is 1c. If 0 is less than a, which is less than 1. So basically, if I'm talking about a rational number, I would have a vertical compression. So, for example, if I have y is equal to 1/3 x squared, then this is a vertical compression by 1/3. Whereas if I talk about inside, so k, this is a horizontal stretch. So for example, if I gave you y is equal to 1/3 x squared, then this is a horizontal stretch by 3. Okay, so let's see how this looks like in some examples. Okay, so in this example, we're talking to you to describe the transformations. So in this case, in the first one, we've got a -5. Now, when I tend to do my transformations, I like to label my transformations, so that way in the end I know how many I should have. Here I see a negative, which means that's one transformation by itself. The 5, that's a second transformation. Over here I see the 2, which is only one transformation. So 1, what's my first one? I see a negative. It's on the outside. So because it's on the outside, this is a reflection on the x-axis. And then number 2, I have 5. 5 is a whole number. It's not a fraction. So therefore I can say it's a vertical stretch by a factor of 5. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. Well, it's only one of them, and it's a 2, and it's on the inside, so that's a whole number. So this would be, first of all, it's on the inside, so it's horizontal. It's a whole number, so it's going to be a compression by a factor of, and you have 2 there, so you turn that into 1 over 2. and that is transformations with horizontal, vertical stretches and compressions, and reflections. So in part 2, we're going to take a look at horizontal and vertical translations. So let's take a look at that in part 2.